Hi, all you cool cats and kittens. Today we will be discussing remote learning. Obviously, we're in a bit of a situation here. Uh, so I really wanted to just share with you my game plan moving forward. And really, that can be broken down into three main categories, I'd say. Let me switch slides real quick. There we go. Lessons from the business world, providing options to meet student needs, and of course, the tools to be using. So let's jump right in to lessons from the business world. I'm certainly no business expert. If I was, I'd probably make a little bit more than a teacher salary. But in this situation, what I decided was the best course of action was to listen to podcasts and um, read some articles from experts about remote, like working remotely, or how to manage a business that is entirely um, remotely run. Sorry, finishing a sentence is cool. So in doing that, I've read articles from people who have worked from home for like 22 years, and then the CEO of WordPress, who has a company that has thousands of employees. That all there's no like WordPress headquarters. Um, Everybody works remotely. So I wanted to share some tips that I learned specifically from them as well. And these tips are not necessarily just for yourself. I thought it was really condescending. We got an email from our district about some tips for working from home, and I thought that was super lame. So I'm not trying to be like that, but rather the tips that I'm going to share with you are things that maybe you can use for yourself, but primarily are things that you can take and pass on to your students. So the first thing, and this is probably the biggest thing in my perspective, is make work asynchronous. And what asynchronous means is that I can be working. I've gotten kind of in trouble in the past for submitting IEP information like at 10:30 or 11:30 at night. So that's a time that is good for me to work, but I would rather my students not be working at that time. Some people are morning people, some people are night people. I have a toddler and an infant. It's hard for me to work while they're running around and going crazy. So we all have different life circumstances. We all have different schedules. We all have different energy cycles, which, like I mentioned, morning people, night people. Uh, let's use those to our advantage. We all have those students, or maybe we're the person who comes in at the beginning of the day who's like super, super tired, needs like 5 cups of coffee to get going in the morning. Um, and ideally, not making those people work bright and early when they're still half asleep is good. Like I said, this is obvious for teachers in scheduling their days, but it's important to keep that in mind for our students as well. The next thing that I wanted to discuss is focusing on what we'll call a big three. So, when we do this, we focus on three main tasks to accomplish in a day. So, that's something that I've personally found helpful. Make a list of three main things that I need to accomplish in a day. And that excludes little things like replying to emails or sending a message on Remind to Parents. But these three daily activities are the main things that I know that I need to accomplish or do my best to accomplish in a day. And I would advise you, or say, try and keep those in mind when you're planning what your students are going to be doing. I know that for fifth grade, um, we have essentially an hour and a half of instruction time to play with. So break that into 30-minute blocks. If you're a kindergarten or a first grade teacher, you've only got 45 minutes to play with. So three 15-minute blocks. What are they going to be accomplishing in this 15 minutes next? This can be based off of subject. This can be based off of maybe even Common Core state standards, the ones that we find to be the major ones. Keep in mind, though, that and I just experienced this. I just sat down for about an hour and I accomplished about twice as much as I would have accomplished if I was in my classroom during prep time or a work period. However, your students will more than likely require twice as much time to accomplish things that would otherwise take them an hour. So Going back to the kindergarten, first grade example, something that in class would take 15 minutes might take a student 30 minutes because there's the barrier of being at home. There's a lot of other factors that we don't really have control over when our students are at home. Right? Let's see, next slide. So up next is set a standing date or multiple. Now, this does not mean require yourself to spend an hour standing up while working, even though that could be a pretty good idea, actually. I think I should start doing that. But rather have team or collaboration meetings scheduled every week for the same day and for the same time each week. Maybe host a video call with your class, have that as a standing thing. Every Wednesday at noon, let's eat lunch together, something like that. I also think that it would be a cool idea to host office hours to say, hey, I'm going to be in this video chat from the hours of 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. Just passively there. You don't have to sit and just stare at yourself the whole time. You can be doing other things off to the side. But if students have any questions, they can just pop in and you can have a quick chat with them and then they can take off and you can get back to what you were doing. I actually, in the weeks before spring break, I tried this out and it was pretty effective. You can set time to collaborate with a colleague, meet up with your grade level buddy or buddies each week at the same time, or even do something like talk to a family member or friend. This kind of provides structure and something to look forward to in the week. So that's the benefit of that. Okay, so up next, we're going to be talking about providing options to meet student needs. Something that I wanted to throw in there. There's the free programs about free Wi-Fi that students can have during the COVID-19 pandemic, or about acquiring devices, things like that. What I have found and what research tends to indicate is that there are more issues than just having Wi-Fi or having a device. There are a lot of equity issues that are maybe associated with that. Students not having a parent at home to run questions by, or maybe even not having a parent who could answer their questions. Things along those lines. So as we are preparing for this remote learning, providing multiple options for our students to best suit their unique circumstances and needs. So I came up with 3 major options, and I'm just going to go over them very briefly. And those are a high-tech option, a low-tech option, and a no-tech option. I sent out a survey to my students' parents on Remind, and what I found out was that a lot of them, yes, have access to students have access to computers, to tablets, to their own cell phone with Wi-Fi and data. But there are certainly a few students who the only technology that they have access to is their parents' smartphone. Their parents said, yeah, you can use my phone for about 10 or 15 minutes during a day. And then, of course, there's the students who don't have access to technology at all. And we all know if we have students with no access to technology in our classes. So let's talk about the high-tech option. This is kind of the dream for me. So this, in my mind, would all be centered around Google Classroom. Google Classroom is an easy way to assign and collect content from students, and it's also a venue that would allow the beginnings of collaboration between students. The content that you'd be providing would primarily be through video lessons where you'd record yourself teaching a lesson just like this, and then you'd provide that to students with maybe some practice problems. Now, the way to remedy when students have questions, not only say, hey, rewind in the practice problem, I just showed you how to do that, but also host weekly video calls, either with your whole class or with a small group of students, but then also allow it so that if a student has a question for you, they can let you know. And you can just have a quick 5-10 minute video call with them and work through problems with them. A new program that I'm excited to start using with my students is called Google Chat. And it's essentially sending text messages or instant messages back and forth with students so that they can say, hey, John, I have a question on this. Can we schedule a video chat? Or sending out announcements to groups of students. Additionally, this is really a cool way that students can start collaborating with one another. I know that students are across the city or like close-ish but can't see each other. But I still would like it if I could have as many students collaborating as possible. And so that's really the purpose of video calls and video chat. Yes, so that they can communicate with me to get help, but also so that they can collaborate with one another. Now, the next option is the low tech option. And that's, like I said, if a student has access to just their parent's cell phone for about 15 minutes a day. So, what I have set up is a class website, and I'll be able to provide you with a resource about how to build your own class website, and it has a template and stuff like that, so you're not starting from scratch. But you can post video lessons onto your class website as either a YouTube video or just a video. It's best practice to keep those to about 5 minutes for kids. Um, they can use their parents' cell phone whenever you have video calls using the program that I'm about to talk to you about. There's actually a phone number that they can dial in so they can participate on their parents' cell phone. And similarly, students can collaborate over the phone. Let me move myself real quick. Hello. All right, and then the last option would be a no-tech option. Student has no access to technology, including a parent's cell phone. In my mind, they may or may not still have access to a landline, but yeah, we'll go from there. So my instinct, or maybe not my instinct, but my first thought was, man, I have to send a bunch of worksheets, packets and packets of worksheets. And everybody knows that worksheets are like the worst way to teach a kid. They suck. I hated them. I lost them when I was in school, and you probably did the same thing. So I'm trying to come up with ways that students can complete work without just having to overload them with worksheets. Yes, in order to get math problems to them, we'll have to do some worksheets probably. But like I said, just trying not to overload students with worksheets. So the first idea that I had was to do choice boards. Choice boards are essentially you give a student a menu and they pick 3 things to do in a day, or yeah, let's go with 3 things to do in a day. Those could be things like making a book or making a comic book, hands-on activities, working on practice problems, spending time reading, things like that. And then again, I'm assuming that they have access to a landline and they can call into video chats if they have access to a phone. So those are my 3 options. I'd be thrilled to brainstorm with you to flesh those out a little bit more, or if you have different ideas or anything like that, I'd be happy to talk about that. Next, I'd like to talk about just a few tools. Let me get to the right slide real quick. Tools, like I said, duh. Okay, so the first one I wanted to mention is Google Classroom. This is kind of the biggest, probably most important tool that you can be using with your students, in my opinion. You can, like I said, easily assign and collect coursework. I wrote lessons, and resources. There's auto grading features, which make things a lot easier. You can differentiate for different students by selecting who each assignment is assigned to. And like I mentioned, this is a venue to start allowing students to collaborate, and it's device agnostic, which means that you can use a laptop, you can use a desktop computer, a Chromebook, a tablet, a cell phone, and have access to this. Up next is Google Meet. There's been a lot of hype around a program called Zoom lately, but it seems like our district is kind of pushing us towards Google Meet. You can make video calls with colleagues or students, and people without internet can call in on their phones to participate. There's a lot of really cool features about this that we can talk about one-on-one if you'd like. In addition, there's a program that I mentioned that I'm excited to use called Google Chat. Like I said, you can send instant messages to colleagues or students. Students can ask questions when they need to. This is maybe something that is a red flag going off in your head, thinking, what? I'm going to be texting students? How dangerous that sounds. The reality is that APS archives and keeps track of all of these messages, so you're protected. And through Google Chat, you can schedule meets, so like the video chats that we just talked about, or you can share files from Google Drive. And then a few more programs that I wanted to mention, or a few more tools. Google Arts and Culture, in addition to AirPano. So those are kind of both tools where you can send your students on what I'm calling virtual field trips. I'm planning on doing a field trip Friday. This Friday, my students, totally optional work. Some parents were like, why are we not doing work? So I set up something quick for them. But this Friday, my students are going to be exploring the Sphinx in Egypt. And that's the kind of things that you can do with Google Arts and Culture. Have them explore, like I said, the Sphinx. They can go to the Colosseum. They can see Antarctica. You can, I don't know, send them to explore their neighborhood, something like that. AirPano, I haven't really played with it too much, but it's pretty similar. There's essentially panoramic shots and that you can look around. With Google Arts and Culture, you can actually send people along a trail, which is cool. Um, I can't tell you if AirPano has a similar feature, but that's just another option for whatever you prefer. Google Voice is a free app, again, obviously by Google, and it will allow you to get a free local phone number. And my thought is to use this to communicate with parents. So I don't really feel like giving out my personal cell phone number to parents. Maybe you do, and that's great. But through Google Voice, parents can text you, they can call you, and there's a feature that's really cool where you can flip a switch and they can't reach you anymore. It's another level of coolness, whatever, is that essentially when somebody makes a phone call, it'll say, this person is using a screening service, say what your name is, and you find out who's calling you before you decide to answer or reject the phone call. So yeah, I think that email is great, using Remind is great, but maybe giving parents an option to talk to you over the phone is pretty cool. If you're okay with it, students can use this as well. I think you can set it up with your APS account. I have mine not set up with my APS account, so I'm not going to have students contact me through that though. This tool that I'm using to actually record this video is called Screencastify. You can easily record and share videos and tutorials. It's a Chrome plugin, so it's super easy to use, super easy and free to install. And what I love about it is that with pretty much 1 or 2 clicks, you can either publish your video onto YouTube if that's something you want to do. You can share it, and then it automatically saves it into a folder on Google Drive. There's a free and a premium version of this. I pay for the premium, it's like $25 a year. Well worth it, but the free version is also awesome. You won't have a problem with it. You can stick with that if you'd like to. And yeah, I think that probably because of the coronavirus, they're even expanding the features on the free version. And then the last one that I wanted to share with you is called Slides Mania, and it's a website. And I'll send links to all of these things for you. But Slides Mania is pretty much a website where you can download free Google Slides and PowerPoints templates. This template that I think is pretty cool is Slides Mania, and my perspective has always been if you do visually appealing products for your students to look at, they'll be more inclined to complete work. There's a bit of research to show that, but like, why would you want to look at something that's super lame if you could look at something cooler, right? And the cool feature about this, I didn't even really have to think about how I was going to design anything. All the templates were already set for me. So that's pretty cool, pretty easy. So today we spoke about lessons from the business world, things not only for yourself to keep in mind, but also primarily my rationale for sharing that with you so that you can take that and use it for implementing in the curriculum that you design for your students moving forward, or even habits to distill in them. I know that that's a major thing that is important about our job too, right? I wanted to provide you with options to meet student needs, which are very diverse um, and complicated, of course. And then I shared with you 8 tools, very briefly, by no means comprehensive, um, just kind of sharing with you what's out there and the options that you have. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me. Feel free to contact me with any questions or to learn about any of those tools we spoke about today. I'd also be thrilled to brainstorm with you. My email and phone number are right there. I'd be happy to talk to you over the phone, communicate over email, or even schedule a video meeting with you. All right. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.